Hey everybody, this video is just going to be a quick kind of walkthrough of the interface for ProPresenter and how to do a couple things. Basically, some basics to know. We won't dive too deep, but a little deeper than you might be now. So yeah, hopefully this video is helpful and you feel a little more comfortable running stuff. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So we'll start over here on the left side. So we have our library and our playlist views right here. And these are basically just lists of stuff. So service items has a bunch of things we use for like communion, events, stuff like that. Songs are all of our songs, all stored in there. You shouldn't really have to mess around in the libraries too much. And then the playlists, I keep it to just one most of the time. There might be some instances, there might be another one on here, but whatever week we're on, you can look for that. And that'll be the right one. But again, I try to keep it to one just so it's nice and clean and not a difficult thing to get through. And then you'll notice down here, things change as we clicked up here. So on the playlist, we have items inside of the playlist that are our typical pre-post service slides, countdown, songs, welcome, all that stuff. And you can kind of jump around to those sections by clicking on them if you want to do it that way. And then moving over, and a couple tips here. So these are our slides. Running them is pretty easy. As you know, you can click on them. You can use the space bar if you want to. You can use your right arrow or your left arrow to jump around. But one thing you might not know, and I forget about all the time, is you can use your up and down arrows to jump between your items. So right now we're on my testimony. If I hit down, it'll jump us to King of Kings. Down again, Risen Lamb, bumper video, that kind of stuff. So that can help you find which section we're at if we're going back to a song or something. It's a little easier than scrolling really fast and trying to find the first slide and all that kind of stuff. You can just hit up and get to where you're going. You also might notice when you go down, it doesn't select any of the slides on here. So if you hit the space bar or the next arrow, or as always, you can click on it. That'll actually get you started on that section, but you can jump to the section or between the sections a lot easier that way. And then just a couple little things, just so you know what everything does. Up here at the top of each item, we have these icons. So I'll walk through what they do really quick. This first one is slideshow. So we're not really using that for songs or anything, but you'll notice on like the pre-service slides and the countdown slides, I do have it. It's just an easy way to drop in a bunch of slides or pictures or like that kind of stuff. And it just automatically loops through them, makes it nice and easy. You shouldn't really ever have to mess with that, but just so you know what it does, that's what it does. This next one is notes. So if you had a note that you wanted to make yourself, you can do that. Again, I have like this notepad here by the computer, so you can write stuff there, but this is just if you have something at the top of the song that you want, if it's like, hey, wait till Joe prays, Joe's gonna say something like that, you could make a note here if you wanted to. I haven't really used this section because it's easy to overlook, but if you wanted to use it, you could. This next one is arrangements. So this is a little confusing, but it can be very useful. So you notice here we have two lines of stuff. So this first one is kind of darker and the second one is a little lighter. So the first one is our master arrangement. It has basically every song section, including different choruses, which might have different chords or different words, that kind of stuff. And then this bottom one is whatever arrangement we are currently using. So down here, there's a little drop-down menu of the different arrangements. So if we look at master, we don't have that. I usually make whoever is leading the song the name of the arrangement for the week, just so it shows up nice and easy here. We know who to watch. But if you need to make any changes to this, you can. So if you wanted to, let's say, add a second chorus here, all you do is you grab the chorus from the master arrangement and you're just going to drag it down and it'll add it there. So you'll notice it changed right here. If you need to get rid of something, you'll notice these X's pop up. You can hit that X. It'll be good. The reason for doing it this way instead of just like all the slides all in an order is, number one, it's easy to just add something like that. Number two, if you need to make a change on something, it'll do it for everything that is that section. So you'll notice these two slides are the starts of choruses. So if we jump into this one and make an edit, it affected this one too. So that's kind of part of the reason I do that. It makes my life a little easier, but it also makes it easier on Sunday if we need to add in a section or take in a section really quick. You just come up to this arrangement and you can kind of mess around there. This next one is timeline. It does very cool stuff, and I might at some point use it, but I don't now. It's basically for automating things. But again, we're not using it. You can click on it and look at it, but it doesn't do a whole lot right now. This next one is basically for an announcement loop, which we don't really use. So you can set something to be announcements or presentation. And what that lets you do is you can send just announcements to another screen, but so like my last church, for instance, we would have the announcements playing in the lobby, but in the room we would have our normal IMAG stuff, that kind of stuff happening before service, so that we could still run our tech how we would, but have the lobby not seeing everything. We're just not set up to do that right now. We might be at some point, but right now we're not. And if that was going to be different on anything, it would be these pre-post service slides, or not even the countdown video, just the pre-post service slides. But again, we're not using that, so it doesn't really matter. And then this next one is just transitions. I pretty much have everything set to dissolve at about 0.2 seconds, just so it's consistent for everybody running it. And we get a little bit of a fade, but it doesn't take too long. Makes life a little easier. If you do need to edit a slide, it's super easy. All you're going to do is right click on it, and then you can hit quick edit or edit. Edit takes you into this full view. You can come in here, click right on it, type Satan, and edit it there. You'll notice down here we have some slide notes, and it looks like random letters and numbers spaced randomly, but that is the chords for the band. That's how I put those in for them. So if they said, for instance, this A should be a G, you can click on that, type in a G, and it'd be fine. I'm going to change that back so I don't forget. So if you needed to edit something like that, it's a little trickier editing the spacing, but just in case something's wrong there, you can do that. And you can jump, I'll talk about these in a second. But the other option here was quick edit. So that just keeps you in your typical like presentation view, but you can put something here really quick and then get back to it. The important thing here is you have to hit this exit, because if you hit enter, which is what I always want to do in this view, it enters on the slide, which isn't very helpful. So whenever you're done with that, you just hit this X, and then you can keep on going through your presentation how you normally would. Some things up here you might need, like I said, if you go to edit, it's there. Show just takes you back to our normal view, the normal show view. Reflow is another editor. I like using it, but it's kind of weird if you're not just putting the whole song together. So you don't have to mess with that too much. Bible is great if you need to like look up some scripture really quick. You just type it in, and it will pull it up. And then if you needed to drop it in a presentation, number one, you can just click on it and it'll put it here. But you can also copy it. Again, go back to show, and you can paste it into a presentation. And it just makes it easy to get some scripture there. And since we talked about copy pasting, let's talk about if you want more or less of a slide. So moving slides around is super easy. It's just drag and drop wherever you want to go. It's great. If you want to copy a slide, you can copy a slide, and then wherever you want to paste it, if you right click on the slide before the spot where you want it and hit paste, it'll paste it after that. So that makes it pretty easy. You can also delete stuff. You can cut and paste as well. It works how these things work for every other program you use on the computer ever. Another important thing you might need to, again, this is a lot of stuff I set up beforehand, but just in case, now you know, this media right here will bring up all the backgrounds and things. They just did an update, which is this pro content thing, which is like a subscription. So as far as I know, we're not going to use that. Maybe you're in the future and we are, and I'm wrong, and that's fine. But you just come down here. Worship backgrounds are the ones I have downloaded. So you can come in here, and if you wanted to have a background for that, or if you wanted to put it on a slide, you can drag it and drop it, and then it's on that slide. Also, a little pro tip, Command Z will undo anything you've done. So if you did something and you don't know what happened, and you don't know how to fix it, hit Command Z and it will probably take care of you most of the time. And then really quick down here in this bottom right corner, this basically affects how you view these slides. So we have our grid view, which we normally stick on. Easy view, which is nice because it just gets rid of backgrounds, gets rid of like any formatting, and is just white text on a black box. So it's easy. It's not that big, which seems kind of weird to me, but hey, here we are. You also have the table view, which is nice because it shows you words. It's kind of a lot of information all right in your face, but it shows you words, shows you what the slide will look like, shows you the notes, which are the chord charts. But again, we mostly just hang out on this grid view. This little 3 dots ellipsis has a couple options here. I don't really use them, but you could turn them on if you want to when you're running it. So slides by group just shows you the slides by the group. So it just kind of separates them a little bit. It still goes to the next one. They're just a little more separated instead of all being like right one into the next. And then the other option is just adding a background onto them. So it's just a black background, but we don't really have a background on there anyway. I don't know if it okay, it doesn't cover like our worship backgrounds. It just puts it behind everything. So you could do that. You can make it whatever color you wanted to if you wanted to mess around with that. There you are. Make them red. But I'm usually just fine with this little see-through background there. And then you can also change the size of the slides with this little slider down here. So you make them real small, and you can see a lot of them, or bigger. I tend to hang on 4. I feel like it's readable, but you can still see a lot of stuff. But if you feel like adjusting it, you are more than welcome to. I can always get it back where it needs to go. All right, I'm going to cut in. As I was watching this video back, I had a revelation. So as we're going through each of these different views, this little ellipsis does different things. So I could come in here and change like the font size, so you can make that a lot easier. You can change the text to different things so it's easier to read if you want to do that. Again, you still have like these backgrounds, and you can show backgrounds there. Wow, that's so cool. Anyway, just more options basically. So you can center stuff, put it right in the middle. With this one, again, you have different options. Move stuff around, do what you want to do. So some of the stuff holds over, but again, like this easy view would actually be decently helpful now that the font is bigger and that kind of stuff. So yeah, more options. If you're having a hard time seeing this, you could always come over to easy view. You still see your backgrounds. We can mess with the font, make it as legible as possible. And yeah, there's that. All right, back to the video. All right, and then moving to our right side, we have these audience and stage buttons. Basically, these turn on and off the displays. We don't really have a reason to turn them off. All it does is show the background. So like the computer background, which is just weird. Some people set them up so it makes sense, but we are not set up that way because we don't really need to. But if you're having problems getting stuff to screens and you notice that these are the red circles, then you can click on them, make them green. That's what they should be anyway. Our next spot over here are our audience looks. So if we click on these, you'll notice we have some in here: default, worship, speaking, and funeral. And basically these change what is going to different screens. So right now we're on worship, which has our full screen graphics for our center projector. And then it has our lower thirds for online, and it won't affect the stage display because that's not an audience screen. So just these two screens. But if we go to speaking, you'll notice now both audience screens have the background, and they're both the lower thirds instead of having these in the middle. So I set these to change automatically, but if something were wrong and something wasn't quite right with the center screen, you could come up here and check. And if it says worship and it's supposed to be worship or whatever section you're on, then you can leave it. But if it says the wrong thing, that could be the issue. So there's that. And then there's this live button, which we don't use because we don't use ProPresenter for streaming. So you shouldn't have to click that ever. All right, and then right below that, we have our preview window. I set this up so that we can see all three of our screens at the same time. So lower thirds, go into the stream, full screen for the center screen, and then our stage display, confidence monitor, which is what the band sees, and you'll notice it has chords on it, all that good stuff. If you wanted to change what you're seeing here, you can come here, and you see we have our audience screens and then our stage screens. So we could go to main screen, that's the lower thirds, or full screen, or confidence view, confidence screen, or multi-view is this. You can also resize this window, so you can drag it, make it a little bigger, so you can see better. If you wanted to have it on just one of these, it'd look nicer. So if you would rather see that more than like your slides over here, you can do that. I've tried to strike a balance between having the slides big enough to read and having this where you can still kind of tell what's going on. Also, it runs this at a lower resolution, so it's kind of pixelated and gross if you get it too big. And then right next to that, we have all of our clear buttons. So these basically take things off the screen. So you'll hover over this one, you'll notice it pops up and says clear all. So that clears everything. But if we go back into it, you see we also have other sections here. So if they're red, then that's something that's being used on the screen. If it's not red, you can't click it. It doesn't do anything. Well, you can click it, but it doesn't do anything. But I'll just kind of walk us through what each of these are. The first one is music. So it's if you have music playing like we would for pre-service, you can click that and it'll get rid of that. If that's playing, shouldn't be. The next one is messages. So like if we have our first service countdown going, you could clear that message if it didn't get cleared for some reason. The next one is props, which we don't really use. I'll talk about them a little more later, but we never use them, so they're never on a screen, so you shouldn't ever have to press this button. Same for announcement loops. That's this guy that I was talking about before. We don't currently use them at all, so you shouldn't really have to mess with that one. The next one is clear slide, and I'm going to differentiate between these before I click one of them. Clear slide and then clear media. Slides are the words on the slides and like pictures on a slide, and the media is like our background videos and that kind of stuff. So if we clear slide, you notice our background's still there, but we don't have the words. And then if we clear media, we still have the words, but we don't have the background. And then this last one is video input, which again you would use for like the live stream, but we don't stream from ProPresenter, so shouldn't have to use video. And then next we have these three tabs down here. So this first one is media stuff, basically, showing you the timeline of how far through that video it's played. The next one is announcement loops, which if you recall, we still don't use them, so you don't have to worry about it. And then this last one is audio. So if you have audio playing, it'll show you how far through the song it is. You can skip around if you need to, whatever you got to do there. So that's kind of what those three are. There are also some other controls. You can skip through the video if you need to, or take it back to 30 seconds, or pause it if you want to. This is markers. It kind of goes with that timeline thing up here this one. Kind of goes with the timeline thing up here I was talking about, but again, we're not really using it, so you shouldn't really have to worry about that one. Again, you can just click around, skip to different points in the video, pause the video if you need to, and there's all that. All right, this next section is a useful one. It's good to know what's going on down here. So this first one is music. We have some songs dumped in here. Library is like everything, but then we have some playlists. This is our pre-post service music. I usually set this to just automatically play and stuff, but if you need to get to it for some reason, this is where it is. This music tab, and then the pre-post service music. This is something we do sometimes, but not usually during service, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. Anyway, there's just different music in here. This one is stage display layouts. So we have our confidence screen and then our multi-view. The multi-view isn't actually going anywhere. I just had to kind of make a fake screen so it would show all three of these at the same time. But what this view lets you do is change what's on those. So for instance, during worship, we have the chord charts on here, and it's laid out different than it is during the message. So you could come on here and go to the speaking one, and then it'll change that look. Something I normally set up to change automatically, and you don't normally have to worry about it, but just in case, you could come in here if it was on this and we are starting worship and they're like, oh, we don't have the chords, it's laid out weird. You can come in here, click on that, because you could see that looked weird if you have the multi-view up. Changing anything on here will just not be helpful. So I would just leave the multi-view how it is, because it's just a fake screen. You can also, down here, type in a stage message that will show up on the screen. It's flashing under that, so you can't see it super well, but I promise it's there. There you go. You never know what you might need to say. It's hard to say, but in case you do, that's how you find it. You go to this stage display tab, type it in down there. Our next one is countdowns. So these first two are counting down. If we open them up, you see countdown to a time, 9:30 a.m. So it's just kind of always running, these first two. And you shouldn't really have to mess with them unless something weird happened with time. This next one is a sermon timer. It's a 30-minute sermon timer. Again, usually trigger it to start and do its thing when it needs to, but if you need to, you can come in here. You can see we're over a little bit. I've been working on here. But you can stop it, restart it, play it down here as needed. You can also make more if you needed more for some reason. That's timers. And then we have messages. So our first one, child pickup number. I know most of you know how to do this, but here it is. Just come in here, type in the number, and then down here at the very bottom, click show, and it'll show up on the screens. Whenever you see someone walk out of the room or someone tells you they're good, you hit hide and it's gone, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. These next four are all countdown things. I'm trying this week to automate these, so we shouldn't really have to come to this page for these anymore. But in case you need to, you can always come here, click show, and it'll pop up. This would be like during our pre-service slides to show that there. The 5-minute is just a different one. We're trying some different things with our countdown right now. So that's kind of what those are all about. And then control number. This is so I can remotely put in a child number if I need to. So you shouldn't really have to mess with this. It's the same thing as this one. You just type in a different spot. This next one is props, and we don't have any props. Some people will use this like for name lower third, so they can just throw something up whenever anybody goes on stage. But I preset all of that beforehand, so I don't have it. So we don't do anything with props. There's not really a reason to come to this one. And then the last one is macros, which are great and wonderful, but maybe a little confusing, so I'll try my best to explain them. So macros do a couple things. The kind of first thing, most important thing, most helpful thing, whatever, is they let you do lots of actions with one click. So, for instance, our worship right here, if we come in and look at what we have a clear all. It changes our audience look. It changes our stage display, and it does a custom control. So the custom control stuff, this little antenna signal that you see on all of these, is basically how I can control other things with ProPresenter. So in this case, it's changing what the switcher's doing so that the person running the switcher doesn't have to change what's on the center screen. It just automatically tells it, hey, go to the worship look, which is the background, and then back to the iMag when we go to speaking, that kind of stuff. So it makes it really easy to do a lot of things with just one button click. I also drag these onto slides. So like the first slide of every song has one. The bumper video has one. It's green. It's kind of dark. You can't see. The sermon has one. Basically, everything has a look that tells it what to do. Again, kind of like the audience looks we looked at before. There's a default that'll just work for the most part for whatever. Worship, since we do things a little differently, moves things around. One for a video that kind of affects the stage display so they can see what's happening on the video. And one for speaking that's just set up for our speakers. So yeah, that's what all those do. And then you'll notice down here we have baptism cam and drum cam. Again, these have the antenna. So what they're doing is basically switching one of the inputs on our video switcher from the drum cam to the baptism cam or vice versa. So if you click baptism cam, that camera will be pointed at the baptistry. And if you click drum cam, it'll go to the camera that's pointed at the drums. That's just because we only have so many inputs on the switcher, and this was an easy way to make that happen. Again, I usually just drag these to a slide, so all you do is click on the slide. But in case you needed to, if there's a baptistry coming up, you could jump to macros and click on baptism cam, and it would change over there on the switcher to the baptistry cam. If you do that, you just have to make sure you go back to drum cam if we're going back into a song or anything like that. And then all these are kind of what I was saying. I'm testing out automating the countdown stuff at the beginning of services. So you shouldn't really have to mess with them. They're just changing some message stuff. See all the paper airplanes changing some message stuff. So yeah, that's all those are really doing. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just kind of a quick overview. I know it wasn't that quick, but there are a lot more things we could jump into, like themes and the reflow editor and getting into all this stuff over here. So yeah, that's kind of what you might have to do on a Sunday. Again, for the most part, I try to make it so you can just hit the space bar, and that's all you really have to do for the most part. But I like to equip people so that they actually know the equipment they're running instead of just being a button presser. So thank you for watching the whole thing, and I look forward to serving with you.